Welcome back, YouTube. Sensei Domino here. Today I've got something really cool to share with you. This is a complete card set from the 1925 Yalo football card game. Now, it's not the complete game. The complete game came with a game board. It also came with a metal football marker. It also came with a yardage marker, and it came with a manual. So I wasn't able to get the complete game, but I was able to get the entire card set, which is really amazing to be able to find. To tell you a little bit more about this set and what is sort of interesting about this set, I have pulled up 3 different articles that were written on prewarcards.com. Let's go ahead and get started. So the 1925, and there was also another version that was released in 1934, and then there was a collegiate version in 1940. But this article is the 25 and 34 Yalo football cards. So the 1925 and 1934 Yalo football cards were part of a gaming set. Only 2 different card designs exist. One is for offensive cards, and the other is for defensive cards. In all, there were 200 cards, 100 offensive and 100 defensive. The cards do not contain pictures of specific players. Rather, each one is a generic image. The offensive card features a ball carrier, and the other is in a defensive stance. Cards have the initials EJG on them with a copyright for the game's creator, E.J. Graber. I don't know if you can see that right there, but that says right there, EJG. All right, both cards are somewhat rare, but very inexpensive, usually only a few dollars. Despite not depicting specific teams or players at that price, these cards are well worth a pickup for pre-war football card collectors. While the cards themselves pop up from time to time for sale, finding the complete game is a much more difficult task. They are around and will occasionally surface at an auction, but are very tough to secure. In addition to the 25 football game, Yalo also created other games. In 1934, they either reissued this same exact game or a very similar game, and in 1940 they had a collegiate version. In all, there were 3 different sets of cards in the 3 games. In either 1925 or 1934, there were blue and orange bordered cards without card numbers. These do not have card numbers, so this is either the 25 or the 34 set. Then there were also white bordered cards with card numbers. These don't have card numbers and they're not white bordered, so again, this is either the 25 or the 34 set. Nobody really knows. And then there was a red and blue tinted card with different images than this, and that was the collegiate version, and that's 1940. This is definitely not that. The 1925 and 1934 sets utilized the same images. The only difference is that one set had white border cards and numbers on the back. One set is from 1925 and the other is from 1934, but I am unsure which is which. But now a little bit about the game. All right, so the game's biggest selling point was that it could be played in an almost innumerable times without duplication. Specifically, Yalo advertising said 500,000 games could be played without having the same one. This is one of their ads from the Decatur Daily Review back in December 1925. Not just several games can be played, but 500,000 can be played without duplication. Just think of it. You have no more idea of who will win or what the score will be than at any other ordinary game. Every early card game tried to stress that players were engaged in something more than simply a card game. Yalo did the same here, and there were even some exaggeration about real coaches using it for their teams. And then this is another little snippet. Do not mistake Yalo for an ordinary card game. It is an entertainment that has been worked out by football experts. Coaches complement it and use its exactness and realness. Many coaches are planning to use the game with their squads next year in order to help with instruction. Every play in football can be made in Yalo. There are 5,750 possible plays in the game. So how did you get the game? I'm not sure if it was sold later or not, but in 1925, one way to get it was to purchase subscriptions to the Decatur Review. The game could be bought, quote unquote, for purchasing 2 4-month subscriptions to the newspaper. That would seem to indicate at least the first printing was only available regionally in Illinois. And then this is what really caught my attention: Red Grange's involvement. To help push the game, former Illinois and Chicago Bears football star Red Grange was heavily involved. Grange was not only used as the spokesperson, but he was actually given the role as vice president shortly after leaving college for pro football. Further pushing the association was the instruction sheet included with the game. The instructions included a cover letter from Grange to consumers and listed him as the vice president with the company. Interestingly enough, Grange actually signed on with the company only 2 days after he played his final college game at Illinois, and on the same day he signed his professional football contract. The letter shown here, and they have a picture of it, was addressed to Mr. Football Fan and read, "It is with pleasure that I announce my association with the Ya-Lo Corporation. Ya-Lo is a scientific, realistic football game of exceptional variety, yet simple enough for the novice. I am glad to have this chance to educate the public in the science of the great college game." Grange then signed off on the letter. And then this is another interesting tidbit. While the images are often referred to as generic players, one interesting theory is that the cards actually depict Grange himself. There's not much concrete proof on that right now, but Grange played both offense and defense, so it's not a stretch to picture him in both stances. His involvement with the game, as well as the fact that he was a popular local figure, would have made him an ideal candidate to depict. And so that starts the speculation that the image right here very well could be of Red Grange. And to me, that is fascinating. And this came out during his first season in the NFL. So essentially, this is a giant stack of Red Grange rookie cards, you could say, which is absolutely amazing to me. Now, again, whether this is Red Grange or not, I'm not sure. I would have purchased this just to have a football card set that so early in the existence of professional football. But let me go ahead and give you another story where they kind of go a little deeper about the possibility that this could be Red Grange. So, in 1925, the Ya-Lo Corporation developed a unique football card game. The game, as advertised, featured thousands of different play combinations. Its big sell point was that consumers could play it over and over with limitless outcomes, just like a real football game. The first Ya-Lo game was produced in 1925, Grange's rookie year in the NFL. Ya-Lo recreated the game in 1934. Why is that significant? It was the year Grange retired. Notably, the game included a total of 200 cards to simulate gameplay. There were 100 offensive cards and 100 defensive cards. One side of the card included game action, while the other side had a picture of an unnamed player. All 100 offensive cards pictured a ball carrier, while the defensive cards showed a player in a defensive stance. Red Grange's involvement. The company, as many do, turned to a celebrity to help. At the time, Red Grange was just finishing his college career and about to become a star with the Chicago Bears, who would sign him late that year. Grange was more than a spokesperson for the company. According to a 1925 article in the Decatur Daily Review, Grange helped form the Ya-Lo Corporation. To say that he was the public face of the company was probably putting it lightly. Grange was often cited as merely a spokesperson, but in reality, that wasn't true, at least not publicly. While Grange's duties were likely more along the lines of those of a spokesperson, technically, he was regularly cited as vice president of the company, as outlined here. Since their production nearly 100 years ago, the Ya-Lo football card game has always been believed to not picture any specific player. But there is also some reasonably solid evidence to suggest that the cards could depict the Hall of Famer himself. Now, Grange's name is not on the cards, but there's also several reasons why the image on the cards could be of Grange. The case for Grange. First and foremost, Grange was arguably the biggest star in the game after his extremely successful college career. He was in demand as soon as he graduated, and the idea that the company would want to capitalize on his likeness is understandable. and that he was tied to the company, giving them access to him, made that even more likely. And while the corporation could not have used the Illinois or Chicago Bears names without compensation, they were certainly well within their rights to use an image of Grange, who was obviously very involved with the company. So let's dig into that design a little bit. For more evidence, look no further than the color of the cards, navy blue and orange. Navy and orange have been the University of Illinois, Grange's alma mater, athletics colors since the 1800s. Further, they were also the colors of Grange's pro team, the Chicago Bears. Heck, Grange was identified by those colors, and I'm not sure that using those colors was a coincidence. Finally, consider that there are both offensive and defensive cards, one designed for each side of the ball. Both the offensive and the defensive players look like the same person, and, you guessed it, Grange was one of the premier two-way players in the game, suiting up for both offense and defense. If there was one guy to play the part and represent both sides of the ball, it would have been him. None of this, of course, is the kind of without a doubt slam dunk evidence that fans will crave. What really is needed to definitively call these Grange cards is some kind of documentation from the time of production or, more attainable, original images of Grange in these poses. But even without that evidence, it isn't unreasonable to connect the dots and suggest that the cards depict the college and pro football Hall of Famer. So again, some very interesting evidence that this very well could be Red Grange on these cards. And let me read this last article. Some of it is kind of repeating what we just read, but there is a little bit more information. While there are certainly some, football cards from the 20s and 30s aren't exactly plentiful. The game was really in its early stages on a professional level, and football cards didn't really start going until the late 1940s. However, this early game card not only represents the sport early on, but the argument can be made that it features a Hall of Fame player as well. In the 1920s, the Ya-Lo football game was produced. It included a football field as a playing surface, and more importantly to card collectors, a whopping 200 game cards, 100 offensive and 100 defensive. The cards dictated the play of the game with various outcomes printed on them. Games were first printed in 1925 and then again in 1934. Another printing may have also taken place between that time. These weren't merely game cards with printed action, though. One side of each card featured a generic football player. The offensive cards featured a player carrying the ball, while the defensive ones showed him in a defensive stance. Neither player is named, but there is good reason to believe the player depicted is Red Grange. Why? Well, I outlined in this article here, but essentially there are various reasons to believe that. First, Red Grange served as spokesperson and vice president for the Ya-Lo Corporation that produced the games. Grange was also a two-way player, and the game cards were printed on blue and orange ink, the color of Grange's alma mater. The great thing about these cards is their affordability. Because 200 cards came with the game, they are not valued very high, even if there aren't a ton of these games around. Single cards are generally around $5 or less, and if you can find a complete game, you'll usually pay very little per card, around 50 cents or so, since low-grade games with all of the cards are usually around $75 to $125. Even if the cards don't necessarily depict Grange, for that kind of price, it's still extremely reasonable for a truly early football card. Those are three interesting articles that give you a little bit of background about the set and the fact that this could potentially be Red Grange. Let me go ahead and show you these cards. Now, again, all of these fronts are the exact same image, and this is definitely a played set. So none of these are in really high grade. They're low grade. Some of them have creases. Some of them have holes, like little pinholes and stuff. So nothing too special condition-wise, but it is still a complete set. These are the offensive, and I'll kind of just go through the entire stack, kind of show you. You can see some chipping on the edges. This one's got a crease. Some of them are better than others, but I don't think any of them would be any higher than maybe a 3. But still really cool to have all 100 cards. Now, I'm not sure if these were all from the same set or somebody just kind of collated this from various different sets to make it complete, but it is still 100 offensive cards and 100 defensive cards. And after I go through the fronts, I'll go ahead and kind of show you the back so you can kind of see how the game was played, even if we don't have the game board. But could you imagine if they're ever able to determine that this is actually Red Grange? The fact that you can get a single card from this set for under $5, and essentially this is from Red Grange's rookie year. I find that pretty amazing. And you kind of have to remember that at this time in 1925, college football was considered far superior from the professional game. Red Grange sort of put the pro game on the map. And Red Grange is also, definitely known for his collegiate career. In fact, in I believe it was 2008, ESPN named Red Grange the #1 collegiate football player of all time. So he definitely made his mark on the game. So I think that's all of them. I'm not sure if I picked up the right stack or not, but let's go ahead and show the defensive cards. And these kind of look a little bit better because they don't have, quite as dark a border as the other ones, so they kind of look nicer. But they are, for the most part, in the same sort of condition. Probably, if you were to grade this whole stack, you'd have a hard time getting a 4 out of any of these. This was definitely a played game. See, there's one with sort of a pinhole right there. I imagine some kid or something had that pinned to his wall or something. There's another one right there. And another one. And there's another one. So yeah, there's a few of them with pinholes. And the last stack. There's not a whole lot to see unless you're kind of looking at the condition of the cards, because it is the same image. But the backs of them are all different because they show, sort of game plays and stuff like that. So they are unique. When you start looking at the back, that one's got some paper loss, and it looks like there's a pinhole, and there's another pinhole. Yeah, so there's quite a few of them in here with pinholes. There's another one right there. All right, so those are all 200 cards. Let me put the defensive over to the side, and I'll start showing you the backs. So, kickoff. I don't know if that's 52 yards or if that's to the 52. Field goal, PK, punt 49, forward pass 44, and run F-op, through line. So you can kind of see. This one's got a nasty crease right there. You can kind of see what the cards kind of looked like on the back. It'd be kind of interesting to play this game because, football was really different back then compared to today. So it'd be interesting to see playing that game, how the game would sort of play out. If I am able to, I'd love to get the game board and the rules to the game, and potentially try to play the game to see what it is. But right now I just have the cards. Maybe I'll be able to find that at some point. Again, there's not a whole lot to see right here. There's really some numbers and stuff. Just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what the set looks like. Now, the other version actually has a number. I think it's like right here. I guess it numbers, the 100 cards for offense and the 100 cards for defense. None of these have a number. So these are either all from 1925 or they're all from 1934. I would like to think that they didn't start numbering the set until, the later version. So I tend to believe that this is the 1925 version, but without proof, it's anybody's guess, really. Last group. So I've got a pretty good idea of what some of these look like. Like that's probably like a gain of 5 or a gain of 7. And I guess right. I saw some L's or some, yeah, there's like left, but I could be wrong, I guess. And then you see like forward pass, and I'm guessing like catch +2 or something maybe. Not sure what IR 20 is. Must be like a type of play or something. Got a penalty passer's side. Yeah, pretty interesting card game. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed seeing this. Let me go ahead and put the cards back on screen. So this has been the 1925, potentially 1934 Yalo football card set. So hopefully you enjoyed seeing this. Till next time, thanks for watching the video, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.